Looking to sound like you know what's going on in the world? Social strategy, comedy, and other funny stuff? Well, join the club and settle in for the Jeff Dwoskin Show. It's not the podcast we deserve, but the podcast we all need, with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
Thank you, Andy, for that amazing introduction, and welcome everyone to episode 16 of the Jeff Dwoskin Show. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Dwoskin. We have got an amazing show for you today. Dwight Turner is in the house. That's right, Dwight Turner. You love him from Chicago Fire, you love him from 1,000 Ways to Die, and we've got an amazing conversation with him coming up. But first, social media tip. That's a pretty good segue. I'm getting really good at these. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about TikTok. Jeff, what are you doing on TikTok? I love me the TikTok. I really do. And here's the funny thing. I love it for recipes. I know it's crazy. I have become a guacamole, tabbouleh, and steak making master. Love it. You should definitely check out TikTok if you haven't. It's totally fun. It really is. And hopefully before Donald Trump takes it away from all of us, before he rips it from the soul of our social media being. But here's the thing. Lots of great recipes. It's a lot of fun. And guess what? Just like on Twitter, they have this cool favorites feature. So you can kind of, in a way, bookmark all your favorite ones because they're only like 15 seconds each. So if you're doing a recipe, you got to watch it like 550 times to really get it down. But totally worth it. They're delicious. Anyway, so check out TikTok. Check out that favorites feature and check out how to make an amazing steak, guacamole, tabbouleh, and then we can hang and share recipes. I'm really excited about that. And that's the social media tip of the week. When I was having my conversation with Dwight Turner, which is coming up soon, and he's an actor, and he's done all this amazing stuff, it had me reflecting on the short period of time that I, Jeff Dwoskin, host of the Jeff Dwoskin Show, dipped his toe into potential acting future of his own. That's right. I almost wasn't your beloved podcast host. I was almost a star of some crazy movie that actually never got made. But the reality is, what happened was in Detroit or in Michigan, they had all these incentives, all these film incentives. And so they reached out to the comedians to do small parts in some of these movies that they were going to film in Michigan because they were getting tons of tax breaks. So I went to audition for one, and I got my headshot, and I made up a resume because I didn't have one, though I had starred once in a Yellow Pages ad for my dad. I was patient number 1 and chair number 2. But besides that, I hadn't had much experience. So I go, and there's all these people sitting there, and I had to read this part. And the part was kind of like the kind of guy that had like the sweater hung over his shoulders, and he was a little cocky, and he was, just kind of thought he was totally cool. And so I was going to read for it, but I only had so much time to read for it, and they didn't call me. So I kind of wanted to be polite, and I said, hey, I got to go, but I just didn't want to disappear, with hopes that maybe in the future my entire career could blow up, and I didn't want to ruin it with this one bad example of my behavior. So they did what I feared the most. They went, oh, you got to go? Well, we'll see you right now. And I'm like, no. I wasn't meaning to rush anything or I just wanted to let you know no, come right in. So I went in and I had no idea what I was doing. And they were feeding me lines, which I didn't even know what that meant. And I just tried to read the lines and they're like, thank you. And that was it. And I left. And it was so embarrassing. I actually didn't even sign the release because God forbid they had footage of me being so horrible that I didn't want it to be able to use anywhere. So I just snuck out. So flash forward like a week, I get an email for a callback. And I'm like, a callback? That's crazy. I was horrible, beyond horrible. You could picture the worst thing ever and then amplify it. And that was me. But they had me, wanted me to do a callback. And so the piece was nerdy TSA agent. I'm like, nerdy TSA agent? What? I'm like, come on. I was trying out for a cool part. Anyway, so it was nerdy TSA agent. But when I double clicked on it, the PDF, the script, it said super nerdy TSA agent. So if you can imagine, my entire ego was just shot to hell. My wife laughed at me like you wouldn't believe someone could laugh at someone. But guess what, guys? I found the script for Super Nerdy TSA Agent. And guess who's going to read it right now and redeem himself? That's right, me. Now, keep in mind, I did go back. I did read. They tried so hard to get something out of me, but failed miserably. Or I failed miserably. It was horrible. But I'm going to redeem myself right now. Now, this was for a Jason Mewes-led vehicle. Jason Mewes is J of Silent Bob and Jay. And the movie was called Bag Monkeys by Lee Ehlers. I will be reading every part. A super nerdy TSA agent is seated behind the x-ray machine. Rome rushes up to him. Rome. Break time. Rome goes to the man out of the seat. The nerdy screener grabs his chair fiercely. This is my part. Excuse me, I just had my break. Now I'm working. Rome sees that Smiles is getting close. Rome. You sure? I think you should take another one just in case. Nerdy TSA screener. Me. I ate a PB&J sandwich, sand crust, and a small baggie of lime-infused sun chips. You don't just forget something like that. Rome is getting impatient. Rome. So take another one, nerdy TSA agent. Are you bananas? That would be against policy. End scene. All right. Well, while my acting career isn't taking off, I do count on the support of my sponsors. Today's sponsor, Hammers. Hammers. When you look at something, you think to yourself, I'd really like to nail that. Hammers. For when you really want to nail something. That's right. If you could all get a hammer, that'd be great. I don't care what you do with it. If you want to hammer in the morning, if you want to hammer in the evening, if you want to hammer all over this land. If it was me, I'd want to hammer out danger. I'd want to hammer out warning. I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Hammer. Get one today. All right. We'll definitely support our sponsors. That's cool. They're who keep the lights on. And now I would like to introduce you to my friend, actor extraordinaire. Great conversation I had with Dwight Turner. All right. Welcome to the show. I am here with famous actor Dwight Turner. Dwight, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm happy to be here.
All right. I'm so excited you're here, taking time out of that busy schedule to come to my little podcast. You're the best. You're the best.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be fun.
This is going to be a hoot. Right away with the big credits. Chicago Fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doctor Mabery.
On Chicago Fire. That's pretty exciting. That's pretty huge. What led you? You are from Hazard, right?
Hazard, Kentucky, yes.
Hazard, Kentucky.
So what led from Hazard, Kentucky to Chicago Fire?
Yeah, how does a good old boy never mean no harm, probably been in trouble with the law since the day you were born? How does that person end up as Dr. Mabery on Chicago Fire?
Well, it was a dark and stormy night. No, don't, just kidding. It is an interesting journey because I did grow up in a very small town, Hazard, Kentucky, and very isolated in the mountains, very beautiful area, very little to do with the entertainment industry. But I knew at a young age that I wanted to be involved in acting, and so I went to college, got my degree in communications with a radio television emphasis, interned with CBS. And as soon as I finished college, the very next month, I moved to LA. And I moved there with someone who was also graduating from a university. And we had an agreement, because we had a limited amount of funds, we had an agreement that no matter what, we would stay for a year because, we were splitting the rent and all of that. And he moved back after 1 month.
1 month?
1 month. So I was like, what do I do now? And, that's kind of where the big part of the journey begins. Now, keep in mind also, when I was a kid, I basically talked like this. I, had a big old accent because that's what the accent is in the area. But I got rid of the accent because, I knew what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to be pegged to just one sort of thing. I can certainly bring that accent back anytime I want to, but I knew that it would have limited me on the roles that I could play. So the roommate moved back after 1 month. And I was like, what do I do now? I can't afford this rent on my own. So I ended up, and I didn't really know anyone in LA. And I was really nervous about trying to get a roommate that I didn't know. So what I did was I found a guest room in a beautiful home up in the Hollywood Hills. And I lived 2 doors from Bruce Springsteen.
The boss.
The boss. And so what was really cool about that is every once in a while, he would have his windows open and I could hear him practicing, which was just beyond awesome. And
He's amazing.
He is amazing. And I had a very lucky thing happen. Auditioned for and became one of 10 students during a period of a year with Nina Foch, wonderful actress. You can look her up. She's done some wonderful work. And she lived in this beautiful mansion on Rodeo Drive. And I remember being scared to death when I auditioned for her because I didn't know what I was doing back then. And I absolutely loved working with her. I think she taught me a lot and got me off to a good start. One of the students from her class had a birthday party, went to his birthday party, and a guy came up to me at his birthday party and said, "Are you an actor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he gave me his card and said, "I'm your friend's agent. I'd like for you to call me up and we'll figure out a time. I want to try to get you in to see me on Wednesday and see if I can get you any work." And so I did. I called him up. We set up a time. I went in to see him that Wednesday. And then he sent me out on my very first professional audition ever. And I booked it.
All right.
And
First
that
time's
was
the charm.
The first time was a charm and a lot of luck in this case. So I was Taft-Hartley'd into the union. It was a big union commercial. And that was fantastic as well, to instantly become a part of the union and be able to then audition for union jobs right away. I thought at the time, wow, this is all so easy. And of course, that was just a really lucky way to start. And I'm always thankful for that, having that happen right away like that. It was very helpful.
That's awesome. Had that type of luck been more prevalent, you may have still had a roommate.
Listen, maybe it was for the best. I mean, it all worked out. But you have to kind of wonder at different points, like when certain things happen, or certain, what might have happened otherwise in this instance or this instance. To give you an example, so after spending a huge amount of years in LA and working in the industry there, I am back in Kentucky now because my mom, my sweet apple pie mom, she's wonderful and I love her just so much, has been experiencing health problems, so I came back. So sometimes I wonder what would be happening in LA if I were there right now. Of course, right now I wouldn't want to be in LA because there's a pandemic happening and I'd rather be in a small town in Kentucky at the moment. But I do wonder at times, like, what am I missing in LA? But at the same time, like, there are things like Chicago Fire that I would not have done if I had been in LA. So since I've been in this part of the country, I've worked in film and television and commercials and voiceover in New York, Chicago, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Kansas, back out in California, Raleigh, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia. And so one of the things I realized in this part of the country is that you kind of have to be willing to travel. I don't mind at all because I love to travel. So for me, traveling is not a problem and a lot of fun. But I'm giving a long-winded answer to your original question, which was, how did I end up on Chicago Fire? So, after I moved out to LA, and I started working professionally, one of the things I started doing was student projects. So I started doing a lot of student projects, and I was working with USC, UCLA, Loyola Marymount, Chapman University, these various schools, especially USC, because they are a fantastic film school and really do some excellent student projects. And I felt like that was a really good training ground. And then eventually from there, I went on to do projects in film and television, just builds over time. The whole way that Chicago Fire happened, which is one of my favorite projects and probably one of the things that I get most recognized for, that and 1,000 Ways to Die, which I didn't know until I did that show what a cult favorite that it is. But my agent contacted me and said, Claire Simon wants to see you for a guest star role. And at the time, I had a conflict that I couldn't go to Chicago, so I sent a self-tape, and I did book it. It's always harder to book from self-tape than it is if you're in the room with the casting director or the producer and director. So 2 weeks later, my agent called up again and said, Dwight, Claire Simon has called and asked for you again. This time it's for a co-star role, and you are going to Chicago no matter what. You are clearing out your calendar. I don't care. I don't want any excuses. I don't care what you are doing. You are going to Chicago because Claire does not call again unless she's interested, and she definitely doesn't call 2 weeks later. So I cleared out my calendar, I cleared out my schedule, and I went up to Chicago and auditioned and booked the role of Dr. Mabery.
Dr. Mabery. So Dr. Mabery, right? And you're from Hazard. Is that a coincidence? Is that just, did they see you coming from a mile away and go, oh, it was Dr. Smith, but not now.
In all honesty, I don't remember them listing the character as Dr. Mabery when I was auditioning, but I think that they named the character after I booked the role. So yeah, I think there's actually some truth to that.
Oh, that is amazing. Is it true you used to, when you lived near Bruce Springsteen, you would run around a lot and you inspired the song Born to Run? Is that true? Did I read that?
Oh my gosh. Who told you that? No, I'm kidding. No, and you're kidding. No, there's no truth to that. We can make up a great story.
That's too bad, because that would have been pretty cool.
Well, I can tell you how he almost ran over me one time.
Oh, you almost got hit by the boss.
Yeah, I almost got hit by the boss. So he drove this really cool convertible, of course, right? And where the house was that I was living at, there was a hairpin turn right there in the canyon. So it was up on Fairholme Drive. I can tell you because he no longer lives there. And so there's this hairpin turn, and it was dark. And up there aren't a bunch of streetlights like there are down in the city. I was out on the roadway. He came barreling around the corner and slammed on his brakes. And that was my meeting with Bruce Springsteen. He was asked if I was okay, and I said yeah. And he didn't invite me in for tea or anything. But at the time, I was a newbie to the industry, and all I could think of in the back of my mind at that moment, now I would have probably had a conversation with him. But at the moment, all I could think of was, oh my God, I'm talking to Bruce Springsteen, not thinking like, oh my God, I almost got run over by Bruce Springsteen. But yeah.
He's like, you okay, Mabery? And you're like, oh, you've seen me on Chicago Hope? He's like, no, why?
That would be years later.
He's been I consider him ahead of his time. So there's no literal timeline in a podcast interview. There's no rules.
All right. Hey, we'll time travel.
We can time jump all we want.
All right.
So that's pretty cool. So, and then you were in a scene with Otis, who was a very popular character, so probably helps to be recognized, which intertwined in such a powerful storyline.
And I have to say, working with Yuri was a real pleasure. Really, really nice guy to work with. Really interesting things about playing Dr. Mabery. So I was the one who, it was a pivotal curve for Otis's character, in that I was the one who approved him to go back to being a fireman again. And so it was a very important part in the timeline for his character. And in fact, Chicago Fire, I didn't even know this until about a month and a half ago. And someone sent this to me. Chicago Fire had put together, after Otis had met his demise on the show, they put together about a 2.5 minute video of his best moments, Otis's best moments. And one of those was with me.
Hell yeah, it was with you. Why wouldn't it be? You're acting like you're surprised. It's like, and of course, as I was watching it, there comes my scene. Why would I have expected it not to be there?
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, listen, he's been on the show for quite a while. He's done a lot of amazing scenes, so it was really nice that the show
really cool.
singled
That is
that
really
out.
cool. That is fun. That's really cool. So then, 1,000 Ways to Die. That's your other cult classic that you're.
Well, that's what I get. One of the there's Chicago Fire, and then there's 1,000 Ways to Die, and those are the two things that I seem to get recognized most for when people see me. When I did 1,000 Ways to Die, I did not know what a cult following that it has. I didn't know anything about the show, and in fact, when I auditioned for the show, I was not happy with my audition. I didn't like it. And I swear this is the truth. I called up a friend in the car and I said, well, that was the worst audition ever. I'm not going to get that. And then I booked it. I found out after I did the show what a following that it has and what I guess a guilty pleasure it is for people. It's interesting. They filmed 2 episodes a day when they were doing that show. And the story, so mine was filmed in the afternoon, then there was an episode that was filmed in the morning. And the one that was filmed in the morning involved insects. Insects. So they actually brought in all of these insects. The thing is when they got around to filming mine, they had not been able to get rid of them all. So,
I saw that coming.
So there were a few little creepy crawlies here and there while we were filming. That was an interesting experience.
That's awesome.
And I remember too just the fun of doing that scene. Where Lenny, I played Lenny. And where Lenny gets really ill and goes down, and that was it was just fun.
That sounds hilarious. It's fun. It must be fun just to kind of just dive into so many different characters. I was watching a reel of yours, and you play a lot of detectives and a lot of doctors, and pretty convincing. If you walked in anywhere and just pretended you were a detective, I'd be all like,
You'd believe it.
I believe this guy's a detective. This guy. Who's got a crime to solve? Get Dwight over here right now because this guy is a detective or a doctor. I'd be like, hey, what's wrong? I don't need WebMD. Honey, don't look up on WebMD. Let's call Dwight Turner.
It's funny that you said that because I actually did voiceover as the doctor for WebMD.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but we can get to that in a minute. But the whole detective thing, the first one that I did was a show called Betrayed, and that was filmed in LA. And it's one of those things where you don't really plan it. You just do it and you play the role, and then people like you in that role, and so you get hired for another lead detective role, and then another, and then another, and then another. Listen, I do not mind. I actually have a lot of fun playing those roles, but you can probably see though from my other work that I enjoy playing all kinds of different characters. To me, what's really fun is just taking a person and becoming them, or a character or a role and becoming that person for a time period. The more convincing I can be at that, the better I feel like I'm doing my job.
That is very cool. So you've done drama. You've done comedy, but you've also, interestingly enough, with the comedy, you studied with Brad Garrett from Everyone Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
At his sitcom comedy intensive. Was that in Vegas? Is that
no? That was actually in L.A. Oh, I still remember the studio. It's a place called Edgemar, which is it's literally like walking distance. It's right by the ocean, down in the Venice, California area. It was a lot of fun, literally, working with Brad.
Oh, I can imagine. He's a hoot. What's the one tip that sticks out that he taught you?
How important timing is in comedy. which is completely true. Depending upon how it's written and how loosely or tight it's written, if you do not hit the timing right, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. With drama, you can get away with a lot more. But with comedy for television, for instance, that is so tightly written, you basically don't get to play around a lot with it. You have to kind of say what's on the page because those writers have spent a great deal of time writing that out to get the timing just right. And if you start throwing in a bunch of stuff, you can cause that to fall flat. But that's one of the important lessons that Brad taught me was the timing.
Very good. That is that and pauses, strategic pauses.
Well, that's part of the timing.
I guess it is. Yeah, is that right? It's the secret. It's the secret part of the timing, which I can give away, but you were probably under NDA. All right. So, one other thing I definitely want to cover. You lived a Comic-Con dream. You were in a movie called Outsourcery.
Yeah.
And you kind of lived the Comic-Con dream. I've always wanted to go to one. This year they don't even they have it at home. Talk about that movie real quick and just your experience at Comic-Con.
I have to tell you, I mean, I could write a book, but yet I couldn't write a book. But yet I could write a book. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much that's happened. One of the just interesting things that's happened in my life is I've had a couple of situations where I did a film and I never really thought that much about it while I was doing it. I was having fun doing it. But, and then they went on to do some interesting things. One was Outsourcery, which you mentioned, which is about a sorcerer who gets outsourced. And I played his mean boss who outsourced him. And then the other is a project called the Gestapo versus Granny that went on to be a finalist for Project Greenlight with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and HBO. Outsourcery. So I've done student films for USC, which is one of the top film schools in the world, and as well as Chapman, Loyola, UCLA, all really good film schools. I did this one with Cal State Northridge, and it was with a group of undergrad students. I don't know, somehow like some magic happened, and and it got picked up by Comic-Con, and we ended up premiering the film at Comic-Con and doing a panel at Comic-Con, and it ended up getting a nomination for Best Humor Film in 2011. That was the year that all this happened. So what Comic-Con did was they VIP'd me for the entire Comic-Con, went to all the parties, got to, I mean, there was so much. And for someone who had no experience with Comic-Con, and did not know what was going to happen, to be thrown into the middle of it like that was an unforgettable experience.
So jealous. I'm so jealous. That's so cool. That is so cool.
Well, you just have to go sometime.
I know. So what's next? What's your next big thing?
A Day at the White House, which is a musical. So I can sing.
All right.
I know, surprise to all my friends.
You're like a triple threat.
I can sing. Yeah. And but I have never done a musical in my life. And I was asked to audition for this musical. I actually turned down the audition and didn't go. And the casting director got in touch with me and said, why didn't you go? You know, he knew that I could sing. And so he asked me personally, would I audition? And so I did, and I ended up booking the male romantic lead in the musical.
That's awesome.
So it has been awesome and a bit terrifying at the same time because it's something outside of the realm of what I normally do. And anytime something like that happens, there's a bit of nervousness there because you're not as sure about things as like if I were just approaching an acting role. I've been acting for years, so whether it's drama or comedy or, I feel a certain level of comfort. There's still going to be butterflies, but a certain level of comfort. And with this, it's like a lot more than butterflies. But at this point, though, I mean, I've been working on it for a number of months now, and so I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with it. It has been difficult during the rehearsal process because we've had to do it by Zoom. And we recently had our first in-person rehearsal, and we're going to have another one. But because we cannot have audiences now because of the pandemic, what we're going to do is we're going to do a cast recording. We're going to do a live radio version, and then eventually put it up, when audiences can come back. And there is a possibility it could eventually go to New York. We shall see. The composer is connected with New York, has shows there, and the writer-director is award-winning, Vin Moriali. And so we'll see what happens with that. Stay tuned. There's another project. There's a series with a very well-known actor who has starred in a couple of series. And I can't really go into the details of it except to say that if you go to my IMDb page, imdb.me/Dwight Turner, you can see that I'm rumored for the project.
No one's listening anymore. They just ran
to look it up.
So this is dead time, so give them a second to come back.
Okay. And then I hope all of that goes through, once we get past this whole pandemic and the situation that has affected filming, because, he has starred in a couple of series, and he's a very interesting performer. And so, I welcome the opportunity to work with him. It's a very interesting time, not just for me, not just for my industry, but for people worldwide in all industries. And I just hope that things can move forward and we can all be back to working the way we would like to sometime soon, because I love what I do.
I think everything will be normal again. And I'll promise you that I will come to New York and sit front row in the comped seat that you give me to watch your play. I'll pay for the ticket in the hotel, but you're paying for the seat, we'll do the Jeff Dwoskin show live from the play, and we'll have the whole cast. It'll be quite a show. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna write that on my vision board.
Exactly.
We're gonna make that happen.
Fingers crossed that will happen, and that the show will go to New York. That would be fantastic. So I love it.
I'm feeling good. So how, besides the IMDb page, how else? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. How can people keep up with you?
Yeah, there are a number of ways. So DwightTurner.com is my website, and you can go there and see clips for things I've done, both video and audio. On Facebook, I'm Actor Dwight Turner. On Twitter, Actor Dwight. On Instagram, Actor Dwight Turner. And on LinkedIn, Actor Dwight Turner.
All right, so we can definitely stalk you efficiently and appropriately.
If you want to, yeah.
Social media. All right, and of course, Dwight's book, Bruce Springsteen and Me, is also available on Penguin Publishing. You can get all that. That's
soon to be a movie.
Some of the stories we touched on today. So I'm excited for that. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited, and I'm happy you're here. I can't thank you enough. I'm looking forward to the New York show that we're going to do down the road. That is the plan. All right. Thank you, sir. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Well, that was fun. And special thanks to Steve Joyner, promoter to the stars, for introducing me and Dwight. Much appreciated. If you're looking for an awesome promoter, check out Steve. I'll put the info in the show notes. All right, let's get on to hashtag Roundup Trend of the Week. Every week we find a fun hashtag game that hashtag Roundup did and read some awesome tweets to you. You can download the hashtag Roundup app at hashtag Roundup. You can find all the information there, play along, and maybe one of your tweets will show up on a future episode. Every tweet I read will be retweeted at Jeff Dwoskin Show on Twitter, and also will be in the show notes. Speaking of which, follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, anywhere great podcasts are found. Subscribe, follow, tell your friends. That's how we grow. Much appreciated. All right, let's do a celebrity hashtag in honor of Dwight. Hashtag celebrity destinations. Dwight went from Kentucky to LA and all over the world. So let's do celebrity destinations. All right, here we go. Shaka Cancun. Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan. Shaka Cancun. John Wesley Cruise Ship. Ariana Grande Canyon. Camp Larry David. Grand Nick Canyon. Adam Westside. Timeshare. If you could turn back to Brad Pittsburgh. Philadelphia Collins. Philadelphia Collins. Take a Tom Cruise. Bill Murray Hill. Hollywood Hunter. And everyone's favorite, stay at Homer Simpson. All right, that was fun. Again, we'll read more in the future. Check us out. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Check out Dwight. Check out hashtag Roundup. Do all those things. And we'll see you next week on The Jeff Dwoskin Show.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Jeff Dwoskin Show with your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Now go repeat everything you heard and sound like a genius. Catch us online at thejeffdwoskinshow.com or follow us on Twitter at Jeff Dwoskin Show. And we'll see you next time.